Hello and thanks for tuning in. My name's Rob Tart. This is my cow Fluffy, and you're watching Pie's Perspective. Alright Fluffy, it's go time. Several teens burglarized a home, taking several items including jewelry, electronics, and a couple of urns. One urn contained the ashes of the homeowner's father, and the other urn contained the ashes of her two Great Danes. Now the thieves stole the urns because they believed that they contained illegal drugs. Mistaking the ashes for cocaine, the teens snorted some of the ashes. The teens realized their mistake and then eventually threw the urns in a lake. Now you think there'd be several warning signs that what you think may be illegal drugs is actually something else. For example, most people don't store large amounts of narcotics in an urn above the fireplace. It tends to make it easy for cops to locate evidence during drug raids. If the urn has a metal plate on it that says "My loving father Larry," there's a good chance that the urn doesn't contain narcotics. Now let's say, just for argument's sake, that someone does put drugs in an urn as a way to hide them from the authorities. The assumption being that the cops wouldn't go so far as to open an urn full of ashes during a drug raid. Your next clue should be that cocaine is usually white and ashes are gray. I guess their final clue is that when they snorted the ashes and not only didn't get buzzed, but suddenly had a need for a drink of water. I guess it's safe to say that you should know your drugs before you decide to go and steal any. Have a drug dealer give you a crash course on illegal narcotics identification techniques. You need to find a really good drug dealer for this. Make sure he offers both a written and hands-on portion in his course. Now if you're not willing to do that, here are some tips. Not all green plants can be rolled into a joint and smoked. Well, I guess you could smoke any plant if you really wanted to, but if you get a headache and you start bleeding out of your nose and ears, it's probably a good chance that it isn't pot. Not all powder is cocaine. If you find a container that says baby powder, flour, salt, sugar, or feminine itching powder, you should probably make sure that it isn't coke as opposed to doing a line just to make sure. If you see a bottle that says it contains acid, don't put a couple of drops on your tongue. You should at least take it to your drug dealer so that he can do a quality check for you. Although sniffing glue can get you high, putting it in a pipe and smoking it will not have the same effect. Neither will putting it into a syringe, spiking a vein, and shooting it up. Alright, who wants ice cream? We have the thumbs upsicle, the subscribe-sicle, the 3-flavor fave-sicle, and the comment on a stick. Please help yourself to anything you like. A Detroit area man named Daryl Alexander was opening a jar of fruit, but the lid just wouldn't budge. So he decided to persuade the lid to move by hitting it with the handle of a screwdriver. The man claims that the lid on the jar of fruit flew through the air and struck him in the eye, resulting in him being knocked unconscious. He also claims that the jar of fruit was sold to him after its expiration date, and that gas had built up in the jar which resulted in the flying lid. The man decided to sue his grocer and the company that made the jar of fruit. He was offered a settlement for $150,000 but rejected it as being too low. You think that 150 grand is too low for being hit in the head with a lid from a jar? Let me tell you something. I would let you launch a lid from a jar at my head for 20 bucks. How can this guy possibly justify wanting more money? How do lawyers come up with these numbers? I mean, you hear about these stupid lawsuits all the time. I remember a case where some fat people were suing McDonald's because they believed they were responsible for making them overweight. You don't have a case, in my opinion, unless you can prove that Ronald McDonald himself pinned you down while the Hamburglar was force-feeding you double Big Macs. We seem to be living in a world where people no longer take responsibility for their own actions and behaviors. If I'm fat, blame McDonald's. If I gamble too much, blame casinos. If I can't stop urinating in the fridge... Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I wouldn't sue the bus company for not having a sign on the front of their bus that says, "Don't step in front of me when I'm in motion." I wouldn't sue a pots and pan company for not warning me that holding the pot from the bottom when taking it off the stove may cause serious burns. I wouldn't sue a chainsaw manufacturer for not putting a warning sticker on the chainsaw that you shouldn't use the chainsaw to cut your hair or trim your nails. I wouldn't sue a steak knife company for not warning customers that closing your eyes and throwing knives up in the air may result in a knife-related skull injury. I wouldn't expect to see a warning to not pour spot remover on your dog. You get it? Spot remover, dogs, dog named Spot. I couldn't resist. I wouldn't sue God for inventing gravity, which caused me to fall down the stairs while attempting to carry my entire sofa cushion collection up to the attic. Today's question of the day is, name other household items that could be mistaken for drugs. Anyway, that's all I have for this week. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, it's not necessarily right or wrong, it's just my perspective. Fluffy, are you sure you packed this parachute correctly? Fluffy, are you okay? Oh, thank Bovine for that. Taking several items, including several teams. Now let's say for argument's sake, someone puts... Cane is usually white, and not all green pants. You should probably... The man claims that the lid on the jar of fruit, the man decided to sue his grocer and the company the food place. Unless you believe that Ronald McDonald, if I'm fat, I blame McDonald's. If I have a gambling problem, I blame I wouldn't chew. Name other household